So you want to buy a timeshare resort. Most people think a timeshare is real estate. Sometimes the paperwork even agrees with them. There's a deed, a county recording, a legal description of a specific unit in a specific tower. And yet the second the ink dries, the thing is worth zero, not depreciated. Zero. So a few questions. Why does a property lose 100% of its value the instant you own it? Why do owners pay strangers thousands of dollars just to give it away for free? And why did Marriott, a hotel company, decide its timeshare arm wasn't a hotel business at all? The average timeshare in the United States sells for $23,940. That's the number the American Resort Development Association reports, and it's held roughly steady for years. Entry-level packages start lower around $22,000 for about 1,500 Marriott Vacation Club points. Here's the part people don't talk about. Roughly half of that price never touches a building. According to ARDA's own figures, about 50% of the sale is consumed by sales and marketing, the presentation, the free Disney tickets, the buffet, the commission for the person across the table. So of your $23,940, only about $12,000 relates to anything physical. The rest bought the room you were sitting in. And the closing is brutal. The industry measures itself by volume per guest VPG, which runs around $3,500 to $4,000 per person who walks through. With average sales north of $20,000, that implies a close rate near 15%. 85 people out of 100 eat the shrimp and leave. So the question becomes obvious. Why would anyone in their right mind run an operation where half the revenue is eaten by the sales floor and most guests walk? The answer is simple. The upfront sale was never the business. Picture a single hotel room, one bed, one balcony, one coffee maker. That room is the entire machine. Watch what it does. Officially, a timeshare resort makes money in two ways, unofficially in three, but more on that later. The first is the sale itself. We just covered it. A one-time transaction, heavily discounted by its own sales cost, sold to 15% of the room. Thin, almost a loss leader. It exists to create the customer, not to profit from him. The second is the real engine, the maintenance fee. Every owner pays an annual fee whether they set foot in the resort or not. It is not optional and it does not stop. The average is now $1,480 per interval per the 2025 ARDA and Ernst & Young industry study. In 2020, it was $1,120. In 2023, $1,260. In 2024 alone, it jumped 17.5%. Run the compounding. The National Association of Attorneys General notes annual increases around 5% have been common for a decade. At 5%, a fee doubles in about 14 years. At 7, it doubles in 10. Meanwhile, ARDA's own numbers show fees rose 33% over 5 years while inflation ran 21. The fee is engineered to outrun the dollar forever. Now the arithmetic that matters. Finn Law Group estimates the average owner pays about $44,484 in maintenance fees over 20 years. The purchase price was $23,940. The owner will pay nearly twice the sticker price just to keep something the market values at nothing. And maintenance fees are 83% of a resort's operating revenue. The nightly hotel fantasy is a rounding error. The subscription is the company. The third stream is the one nobody advertises. In-house financing. Most buyers don't have $23,000 in cash after the buffet, so the developer lends it to them, on the spot. Financing 80 to 90% of the purchase at rates that industry sources put between 12 and 18%, occasionally higher. A card balance rate, secured against an asset worth zero. Here's how it looks in actual dollars. Finance, $20,000 at 15% over 10 years, and the borrower repays roughly $38,700. The developer collects almost double the price of a thing with no resale value. And financing activity can account for around 30% of a developer's total revenue. Then the loans get bundled and sold to Wall Street as asset-backed securities, freeing the cash to originate the next batch. The developer keeps the servicing fee and offloads the risk. Funny coincidence, that is exactly how a subprime auto lender is built. Now the cost side. Someone has to actually run the building. Cleaning, staffing, insurance, property taxes, reserves for the roof and the HVAC and the next hurricane. Except here's the elegant part. You don't pay it. The owners do. That's what the $1,480 covers. By definition, 83% of operating revenue comes straight from their fees. The building is maintained with other people's mandatory money. The stress case is where it gets interesting. You can't put a resort on pause. In 2020, the resorts closed and the fees kept coming due. ARDA reports nearly 30 resorts temporarily shut after 2024 storms, with deferred maintenance and underfunded reserves. Insurance in Florida, California, and Hawaii spiked. And every dollar of that lands on the owner's next invoice, not yours. The pandemic didn't break the model, it billed the customer. And here's the part people don't talk about. What happens when the owner finally can't pay? The fee has doubled. The owner is older, or sick, or dead, and the contract passed to heirs who never wanted it. They stop paying. ARDA's data shows the delinquency rate hit 7.8% in 2024. In most states, the resort doesn't need a courtroom. It uses non-judicial foreclosure, a notice of default, a public filing, a sale, no judge. The room comes back. Cost to the developer, near zero. And now the room is empty again. Wiped clean, rekeyed, ready. So it gets sold again for another $23,940. To a family who will finance it at 15% and pay a fee that doubles every decade. The developer never built a second room. It sold the same heir twice. This is the whole trick, a single unit that can generate an infinite sequence of first-time buyers, because the product resets to full price the moment the last owner breaks. The secondary market confirms it. A timeshare can't go on Zillow. Resale platforms like RedWeek and the Timeshare Users Group list decent weeks for 5 to 10% of the original price and lower-tier weeks for $1. Not a typo, $1. It gets darker. Owners so desperate to escape the perpetual fee will pay exit companies $3,000 to $10,000 to legally give the timeshare away. People pay thousands to surrender an asset they paid $20,000 for, and that desperation created its own predators. The FBI issued an alert in March 2023, over 600 complaints, $39.6 million in losses from timeshare owners chasing an exit, and that was just Mexican resorts. One outfit, Pro Timeshare Resales, took thousands from more than 8,000 mostly elderly owners. Over 5 years in business, it never sold a single timeshare. 2 men went to federal prison. The government recovered $2.7 million of the $18 million taken. That's the ecosystem, a product engineered to be worth nothing, surrounded by an industry that charges you to escape it. So how does this business die? The threat from the inside is demographic. The entire loop depends on a fresh buyer replacing every defaulter at full price. The core owner base is aging out, and younger buyers are colder to a perpetual contract they can Google in 30 seconds. If new sales slow while delinquencies climb, the reclaimed rooms pile up faster than new marks arrive. The securitized paper is the tripwire sell enough zero-value loans to people who can't pay, and you've rebuilt 2008 with a swimming pool. The threat from the outside is enforcement and reputation. State attorneys general and the FTC have moved on both the developers and the exit firms. The dollar resale market is public, permanent, and searchable, and it makes the sales pitch harder every year. The machine runs on the buyer not doing the math before the buffet ends. Time to name what the money actually buys. A timeshare resort is not in the vacation business. It is in the business of selling the same room until the buyer breaks, then taking the room back for free and selling it to the next one. If that sounds like an opinion, look at one date. In the 14th of February, 2011. Marriott International announced it would spin off its timeshare division into a separate public company. Marriott Vacations Worldwide, ticker VAC, completed that November. A hotel giant looked at its own timeshare arm and concluded it did not belong with hotels. Wall Street had already decided what it was: a high-yield consumer finance and debt business wearing a resort's clothing. They didn't sell the hotels, they sold the finance company. The market proves the thesis isn't niche. ARDA reports roughly $10.5 billion in annual U.S. sales and about 10 million owning households. 10 million people holding a product that resells for $1. Time to pull it all together and answer the actual question. How much money do you make if you do this right? Let's run the math on 3 realistic versions of your asset. Option 1. Build a traditional luxury hotel. You face massive capex, you live and die by daily occupancy, and you carry the full cost of maintaining the building through every recession. You own the risk. Margins run thin, a good year is a single-digit net. Option 2. Buy a portfolio of residential real estate. You own actual physical assets that appreciate, but you're capped by market rent and bound by tenant protection law. Steady, slow, real. Call it a mid-single-digit yield on a thing you can actually sell. Option 3. Build a timeshare empire. You take one hotel room and sell the same year 52 times, at roughly $20,000 a week, over $1 million from a single unit before anyone has stayed a night. You lock every buyer into a maintenance contract engineered to outpace inflation forever, at $1,480 and climbing. You finance the purchase yourself at 15% and sell the loan to Wall Street. And when the owner inevitably defaults, you confiscate the room for free through non-judicial foreclosure and sell the exact same heir to the next family. Option 1 earns a margin. Option 2 earns a yield. Option 3 earns on inventory that was already sold, on money that was never lent at risk, on a room that costs nothing to reclaim. Not bad for a business that gets to sell the same empty room until the customer runs out.